Hello and welcome to Inside Sports. I'm Wes Decker. Man, it's good to have you along this week. And leave it to an admission of honesty from the Pope, of all people, to give me an idea. If you've ever noticed, when he prays, the pontiff's expression sometimes turns grave and he bows his head and closes his eyes for lengthy periods of time. Now, it's fair to assume that's because he's concentrating and has a lot to communicate. However, last week, Pope Francis admitted on Catholic TV 2000, quote, "When I pray, sometimes I fall asleep," while my initial reaction was, "What?" Upon further reflection, I find it refreshing that the Pope would confess such a thing. So from now on, when Dan Kaufman is pontificating, pun intended, about his predictions for whatever, and I close my eyes because I know he's going to go on for a while, just between you and me, I'm not dozing off, wink, wink. I'm praying. I mean, somebody has to pick up the Pope's self-admitted slack, and if I'm dealing with Kaufman, a little prayer goes a long way as it is. And I'll eagerly get started in my new role a little later when he joins me to talk playoff volleyball. Also ahead on today's show, region reviews and state previews for cross country. We'll catch you up on soccer as much as we can, and we begin with Rivalry Week football show and tell. Keep your eyes open for recaps and playoff particulars right after this.
Champions are not merely born, they're forged in the crucible that is flag football. With equal parts turf, pigskin, and heart. That's why Buffalo Wild Wings donates to boys and girls clubs across the country to not only help thousands of kids learn about teamwork on and off the field, but to help them fulfill their destiny. To shred defensive lines, terrorize the secondary, and emerge bonded as true champions.
When you're sick or hurt and can't be seen by your regular doctor, you just want to feel better faster. Make a convenient appointment or simply walk into Meritus Urgent Care, where you can receive attention from our caring professionals, from sprains and strains to sore throats, earaches, and other ailments that are not life-threatening. Meritus Urgent Care has you covered with on-site labs and x-rays and much more. We're conveniently located on Pennsylvania Avenue in Hagerstown at the Sylvania Center. Feel better faster with Meritus Urgent Care.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. So we begin with football, and Week 10's action proved to be rather interesting, especially as it relates to the playoffs. We sort of knew that those scenarios existed. Herald Mail insider Bob Parsaliti joins me. And Bob, first the North-South game, 61st renewal of that rivalry. I can't believe just how close that series is. It's as close as it can be right now after the result on Friday night. A 33-6 win by South Hagerstown over North Hagerstown.
Well, North had an advantage for a little while there, but the last few years, South has caught up again. I think it's 30-2 right now.
Yeah, North had won 8 in a row at one stretch, and now South has won the last 5. And we knew going in on Friday night that the winner of this game had a shot at the playoffs. And through the first half, North was able to hang with South. As a matter of fact, it was only a 1-point game until the final 18 seconds of the first half. And even with being outgained by 140 yards in the first half, North was still within 1 score when the third quarter opened. But then South Hagerstown, after an unfortunate injury at the end of the first half to Jace Wassanone, who had a tremendous first half, all of a sudden enter one of the seniors on the South Hagerstown team in Talik McKenzie, and he owned the second half against North. 130 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground, and then it was just a waiting game after that to see whether or not the Rebels were going to make the playoffs. And unfortunately, big upset by Watkins Mill knocking off Blake, and South winds up 1/10 of a point out, as it turns out. And they have to look back really at that overtime loss to Urbana. That is the one that is going to sting for a while. So South ends up 5-5 on the year. North 4-6, and North with those 4 wins, more wins than they had combined in the previous 3 seasons. So a lot of improvement for North Hagerstown this season, and for South just a bitter pill to swallow at the end not to get to play one more week, because it seemed like they were really rounding into form. As far as that offense was concerned, the last 2 weeks they had run the ball extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, that had been a problem. As much as Coach Toby Pierre likes to, move the ball around and do, a lot of short passing and stuff like that, the run game is a big thing. And I mean, a lot of the coaches around here, they'll do all kinds of stuff, but if they can't run the ball, they're not happy.
It was amazing in the first half, though. I think at halftime, the yardage was almost dead even for South Hagerstown between passing and running the ball because Timmy Townsend had a very solid night on Friday. He wound up going 19 of 25 for 236 yards. A lot of those passes were extended handoffs for the most part, but 2 touchdowns, and that really helped open up that running game.
And Talik McKenzie, I mean, he had been struggling with injuries all year. I can think of 2 occasions where he's been out or really hurt and missing part of the game. The last one I knew for sure was down at Spring Mills. He got hurt during that game. And he hadn't been able to run the ball much. But, you know, he's a load once he gets the ball. And, I mean, you look at, they had 3 second-half touchdowns, and all 3 of them were runs by him. So, I mean, he wore down North.
Yeah, what a great way for him to go out, too, because that was more of what we had been used to seeing from Talik McKenzie and the potential we thought was there. Speaking of potential, early in the season for St. James, boy, they had a world of it when everybody was healthy. But then it all fell apart, off to a 5-0 start, talking about winning the MAC. And in the end, they just limp home with a 6-4 record, lose to Avalon 48-6 on Saturday.
Well, Avalon was a really big team from what I understand. And, you know, they just it didn't seem like St. James had anything to go with. Chase Asinga was the only really healthy receiver, and he caught a touchdown pass. But, you know, you don't have your best running back. You don't have your best quarterback. You don't have your best receiver.
Yeah.
You don't have your best anything. And, I mean, it's unfortunate because I think that was probably one of the more talented teams that we've seen in the last few years around here. You know, and they just weren't able to pull it all off because of the injuries.
Well, the word decimated was used, and I think that pretty well describes the way St. James finished the season. They just never gave up, but man, they just ran out of bodies in the end. Berkeley Springs beat Hancock by a score of 63-0. The Panthers' winning streak comes to an end at 3 as they close out the season with a record of 3-6. Meantime, there was one other hope for the playoffs, and that was Boonesboro. Boonesboro in that rivalry matchup at Smithsburg on Friday night. The Warriors knew they had to win, and then perhaps things needed to break their way. Well, they took care of their part, 35-17 over Smithsburg, although the Leopards didn't exactly just hand it to them. A tough first half where Smithsburg had the lead, 17-14, but in the second half, the Warriors did what they needed to do.
Well, Boonesboro was killing themselves. They had 10 penalties in the first half. And it was one of those fields where, you know, you thought when they come out in the second half, things were going to change a little bit. You know, the stuff that wasn't that successful, they were going to find a way of using it to make it successful. And, you know, all of a sudden they started doing the little bit of like around the end type running, you know, instead of the sweep type stuff. And they were really concentrated on the inside and just blew things open, and Ethan Holobenko had a great second half.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned second half for Boonesboro because during its 4-game winning streak, the Warriors have now outscored their opponents 67-18 in the second half of games. I think that speaks to adjustments being made at halftime and then executed on the field.
And that's with a 0-0 adjustment in the Williamsport game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But that's what they needed to do there was hold serve in that one. So Boonesboro gets into the playoffs as the number 3 seed in 1A West and will face the 2 seed Allegheny on Saturday afternoon. And maybe a little bit of a break for Boonesboro. Looks like Allegheny's starting quarterback is banged up a little bit. Cameron Bratton, questionable or maybe even doubtful with an ankle injury, and even their backup nicked up a little bit. So maybe this is what Boonesboro needs. Come in red hot and 0-6 all time against Allegheny. Saw them earlier this year. Perhaps this is the time.
And 5 of those losses are in the playoffs, and the last 2 were overtime losses, and by a grand total of 4 points.
And that's this Saturday afternoon in a 1A West semifinal. Bob, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'll be back right after this. Much more to do here involving the postseason. And next up, cross country with Andy Mason in just a moment.
At Hamilton Nissan, we know you've got places to go, so let's travel together. The Nissan Rogue, plenty of room for you, and plenty of room for him. With nearly 40 cubic feet of cargo space, everyone will be using the Rogue for everything, all the time. And on on occasion, you'll find an evening for yourselves, and the Nissan Rogue will be right there with you. Hamilton Nissan. Let's travel together. Come see us on the Dual Highway.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. We continue now with cross country, and the region meets are behind us, which means we know all of the state qualifiers from the county. But at the region championships, an interesting thing happened as it relates to 1A, and that is the girls in 1A West. Boonesboro had pretty much locked up what we thought would be a region championship there. Herald Mail sports editor Andy Mason joins me now. And Andy, you were there to cover that. I think you're probably as surprised as anyone that Brunswick somehow edges out Boonesboro.
Yeah, Boonesboro, the two-time defending girls champ, they've got everyone back. You know, it looked like, at the region meet, of course they're going to win. States, of course they're going to win because they're the class of the state. I still believe they are, but they did not win the 1A West region title. Brunswick did. Brunswick's 7-girl team is 1 senior and 6 freshmen. And, at the end of the meet, Brunswick had 48 points, Boonesboro had 48 points, but Brunswick won the tiebreaker because their 6th runner beat Boonesboro's 6th runner. And it was a shock because they raced 3 times earlier this season at the Rebel Invitational at South Hagerstown. Boonesboro was way ahead of Brunswick. Don Stoner, Brunswick was a lot closer. At the Central Maryland Conference meet, Brunswick was right behind them there, but Boonesboro still had sort of a comfortable margin of victory, but not at the region meet.
Do you think that perhaps this is a wake-up call that Boonesboro needs? Because just judging by some of the quotes in the story, you had, especially from the Brunswick coach, maybe we shouldn't have won this one.
Yeah, I think they wanted to, if you're going to beat them one place, you'd rather have it be states. If you're going to sneak up on them, have it happen there. I know Becky Walter, the Boonesboro coach, is a master motivator. Her kids respond. They're good runners. They did not run really well at regions, obviously. Brunswick ran really well. I think Boonesboro is going to get their 3rd straight state title. However, those freshmen are scary because no one improves more than brand new runners, freshman runners. And these girls, and granted, the Hereford course is like no other. It's very hilly, and there's a lot of pressure at the state meet. All sorts of things happen, but maybe being young and naive, and maybe that'll help them. You just don't, you're not going to overthink it.
Well, somebody who brings a lot of experience is Cameron Harper, who did win the individual region championship in 1A West once again as she defended her title. She was here last week, talked about the motivation that she has to win a state championship. Is she the favorite going in?
She is, and she was the favorite last year too. She was the favorite last year, and she didn't win. She got 2nd. This year, I think she's going to win. She's the favorite again. She was the class of 1A West. She sort of ran the lead, ran with the leaders for a little over a mile and then took control, won by almost 20 seconds. Wasn't pushed the second half of the race. I think she'll win. I know there's a pretty good girl from Patterson Mill, I believe, who, she'll be in the running. The Catoctin girl was the region runner-up. She'll be up there again. Brunswick has a pretty good runner too. But yeah, I think Harper prevails. She knows the course. She didn't like getting 2nd last year. And unlike any other girl in the 1A race, she has that 57-second quarter-mile speed, which could pay off if it's real close at the end.
Yeah, going to be hers to take, I think. Anna Roten, who won last year, was 2 minutes and 18 seconds behind her at the region meet.
Yeah, so she finished Anna Roten 21st at the region meet, the reigning state champion. Obviously didn't have a good day. When you're that, she's not going to, I can't imagine she's going to be a threat to Harper at states this year.
And in terms of individual titles, 3A West boys, I guess the county's other big chance lies in Nate McKenzie.
Yes, Nate Neely McKenzie. A few weeks ago we thought he was, right there for the state title, but he hasn't won in a few weeks. Well, he won the county title, but he was 2nd at CMC and 3rd in the region. And all those, the 2 kids from Linganore beat him in the region are going to be there at states. There's a very good kid from Bel Air, But Nate definitely has a chance. I mean, he's a strong contender, but it's, he's a dark horse. He's gone sort of maybe from favorite to dark horse, but he's going to be right in there.
Maybe that's the best way.
Yeah, and his teammate Brandon Gassaway, he's right there too. You know,
Right.
both those guys should, I think they could be top 5 in the state. They both got medals last year. I think Nate was 12th, Brandon was 18th. I expect both of them to place a lot higher. I expect both of them to challenge for that title. They'll be in the mix for most of the way. We'll see what happens. But they're both very good runners, and North High has not had a state champion in cross country since 1983, and
Ooh.
this could be the year.
Yeah, boy, that's
Yeah.
a long time, a lot of history. 3A West, a feather in the cap for the North Hagerstown girls winning that team championship.
Oh yeah, I can't remember the last time North High won a region title. It's been a long time. But yeah, they're going into states as the 3A West champions, back to states again. They were 13th at states last year. Now, even though they're a region champ, they're probably not going to contend for a state title.
The West not being a strong region in 3A.
No. All the other 3 regions are stronger than the West this year in 3A, in the girls' side, in my opinion. But you got Northern Calvert, the defending state champ. They won the South. C. Milton Wright looks really good. They won the North. They were 3rd at states last year. In the East, you got Centennial and Mount Hebron. I think all 4 of those schools are probably stronger than North right now. But if North gets 5th, they're going to have a great day. Great day. They were 13th last year, which is a good finish. I think their goal's top 10. They run really well. They could get 5th place.
Well, we wind up with 51 total qualifiers from the county, 27 boys, 24 girls. Best of luck to all of them on Saturday at Hereford. Andy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Wes.
I'm back right after this. I've got Dan Kaufman. We're going to take a look at the volleyball playoffs in just a moment.
Wanna be one, number one, it's gotta be fun. Wanna be one, number one, it's gotta be fun. Punch it, kick it, giving it all. Premier martial arts helps take it to the top, y'all. Jab, cross, hook, kick, you feel it when we stick it. Wanna be one, winner, yeah, I won. I'm premier, number one. Wanna be number one, kids? Have your parents call.
Champions are not merely born, they're forged in the crucible that is flag football. With equal parts turf, pigskin, and heart. That's why Buffalo Wild Wings donates to boys and girls clubs across the country to not only help thousands of kids learn about teamwork on and off the field, but to help them fulfill their destiny. To shred defensive lines, terrorize the secondary, and emerge bonded as true champions.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. We continue now with more of the postseason, and wouldn't you know, we're not dealt a very good hand when it comes to volleyball, just from a scheduling standpoint. Herald Mail Assistant Sports Editor Dan Kaufman joins me. And Dan, as far as the show is concerned, we tape on Tuesday, so volleyball isn't very cooperative as it relates to that. Of course, the last action was on Monday evening, and it was a good night overall for the county, though. 3A West, Section 2 semifinal. Second-seeded North Hagerstown didn't get off to the best start against the third seed in Linganore, but they certainly finished with a flourish.
No question. I mean, they had to get their hits on the court. That was their main issue with the first set. Once they got that under control, the defense played great all night. Then they had their bevy of hitters come up, Drew Wallach, Chloe Coulter, Casey Jones, Kaylee Smith. They all had their moments in the spotlight. So I was actually, for the most part, really impressed with North once they figured out, hey, keep the ball in play. They played great defense. They spread the ball around offensively. They looked really good.
I was impressed with the fact that they came in having lost 4 of their last 7 matches, and then they lose that first set, but then they respond the way that they did for being such a young team.
Yeah, and it was a senior. I mean, Casey Jones, I think having that senior presence helping stabilize them was definitely a factor. Sienna Starkey, also in the back row, a senior, deserves some credit as well. So they did get that senior leadership that they needed. Right. And then, of course, when you get Drew Wallach hitting well, clearly offensively, she's the go-to for them. Definitely what they needed. They know they're going to get a tough match Wednesday night against Tuscarora.
A team that they beat earlier in the year.
Yeah, but 15-13 in the 5th set.
Right.
I mean, that's about as even as it gets.
But still, a win is a win.
A win
at
is a
this
win.
stage of the season, that's all you need to do.
And it was at Tuscarora, too, that win. So they know they can go in there. They know they can get the job done. But yeah, it would be better for them if they don't have 11 hitting errors in the first set again.
No, they'd like to get off to a much better start than that. They've now split their last 24 sets evenly. Won 12, lost 12. But again, they get Tuscarora on Wednesday.
Tough competition, too. It's
No,
not like
no,
North
there's
is,
no question.
North isn't losing to nobody.
No,
They're tough teams.
You're right. And then either Westminster or Magruder will be waiting for the winner of that one come Friday or
get
Saturday.
easy.
Yeah, and the last team to beat Tuscarora was the 2A state champion, the defending state champions from Williamsport. And Williamsport on Monday night with a pretty easy time of it against third-seeded Poolesville, sweeping Poolesville in that 2A West semifinal.
Right, and it's kind of, I flash back to the mid-2000s when Williamsport versus Poolesville was a pretty common 1A state rivalry. They met a fair amount down at the state tournament, and Poolesville was a tricky team. So I didn't know what Poolesville had this year. I was impressed with Williamsport's overall performance. They've been getting it done as a team. They've had to all season since losing Kiara Lewis to injury. They need 6, 7, 8 players per night putting stats in the book for them if they're going to succeed. And of course, Wednesday night they get Damascus, who Damascus and North had been the rivalry for a long time. Damascus has been great for most of a decade, so that's a big test coming up for Williamsport. But Williamsport's been counted out before. Going in against Rising Sun in last year's state final, how many people really thought Williamsport was going to win that? And they brought their absolute best match. So that we know what they're capable of. Now they got to go do it.
Yeah, Williamsport's been rallying all season, as you said, and now 6-0 in postseason matches under Karen Moyer as the head coach there.
Impressive.
Over in 1A West Section 2 in a semifinal, third-seeded Brunswick over second-seeded Boonesboro. 3-0. The Warriors putting up little resistance early on, but in the third set, it looked like perhaps they had something going. They were up 22-17 late and then outscored 8-1 to close out the set. Kind of a disappointing way to end the season for Boonesboro because I know they had to be looking forward to a potential rematch with Smithsburg.
Sure, and it's tough because they swept Brunswick in the regular season as well. So yeah, absolutely a disappointing way to end the season for them. I'm sure they were hoping for better. We do need to say that Brunswick is a team that has shown vast improvement this season. I mean, they have a 4-set victory over Williamsport. So, Brunswick, and I think they finished 4-2 in the conference in the CMC Gambrel. So, Brunswick's a team that's been coming along and been a bit of a sleeper all year. Smithsburg would be, and I don't think Smithsburg's going to overlook them at all, but they'd be well advised not to anyway because this Brunswick team can play.
Yeah, Smithsburg winning that other semi, as you would suspect the number 1 seed would, sweeping 4th-seeded Clear Spring, and Smithsburg at times during that match having to find a little intestinal fortitude because the Blazers weren't lying down in that one by any means.
Right.
But Smithsburg, again, with that victory via the sweep on Monday night and looking forward to that big matchup on Wednesday against a team they won't take lightly in Brunswick. And Smithsburg has been playing tremendously well coming into this one, 9 straight victories.
I think the key for them, as far as this recent stretch, was the win over Oakdale. I can't say enough how big that win was to win the CMC Gambrel division, get them into the CMC championship match. They carried that momentum through 2 North High matches that they won. And going into that Oakdale match, they were pretty significant underdogs. I mean, that's a weird thing to say about Smithsburg, but given they had lost to Heritage, they had lost to Williamsport, Oakdale had been rolling. I think that Oakdale win was huge, and now they've just piled good win after good win after that. I mean, wow. Smithsburg's where we thought they would be at the beginning of the season, but it just took them a little different route to get there. But they're rolling.
Yeah, they exorcised that North Hagerstown demon and lost to them 6 straight times, and they beat them twice in the span of 2 days. Right. So, yeah, everything has been going right for them. So, by the next time we talk to you, the state semifinals will have been up at Ritchie Coliseum at the University of Maryland. Monday for 2A, Tuesday for 3A, and then Wednesday for 1A. So that's just kind of the schedule we're dealt here. We're doing the best we can. We can't just make them all up. Well, we could, but that's probably not the route to go. So, Dan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and the Herald Mail, and we'll get the info to you.
Dan's got you covered. I'll be back right after this. Soccer dealt a blow with the postponement of games. I'll bring you up to date on where we stand there through this Tuesday in just a moment.
Antietam Broadband's Flight Gigabit service is ultra high-speed internet delivered by a direct fiber connection. We are one of the few communities in the country to have it. But what does it mean? It means businesses will want to move here, which means more jobs, better jobs. It means access to world-class infrastructure for healthcare, education, and nonprofits. It means enhanced social and economic well-being. That's why it won the 2017 Leading Edge Award from the Chamber of Commerce. Flight Gigabit from Antietam Broadband, changing how people connect.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. As I'm about ready to run out the door to go shoot the soccer playoffs that have been rescheduled, let's take you back to what's transpired to this point. And by the time last Thursday rolled around, in the span of 6 short days, the 2-month-long seasons of 10 county soccer teams had come to abrupt endings. The process of separating playoff pretender from championship contender continued. First for the girls in Smithsburg, where the defending 1A West Region champion Leopards hosted Boonesboro for the Section 2 title and a berth in this year's Region Championship match. Smithsburg had eased into the section final by rolling over Francis Scott Key in the semifinal, and the young Leopards pounced on a fatigued Warriors squad in the 18th minute. With freshman Taylor Mackerel feeding sophomore Bailey Grove for the initial shot, Boonesboro's Carly Schofield then gained control in front, but her attempt to clear landed on the left foot of Hannah Spinks, and the Smithsburg sophomore swiftly booted it home in stride to give the Leopards the lead. It was the first goal they had scored against Boonesboro in 98 minutes this season, but the 9th they had scored in their last 98. The Warriors had just endured 100 minutes plus 13 rounds of penalty kicks 2 nights earlier to survive and advance, but tired or not, they executed to perfection in the 30th minute when Michaela Stein got just enough of Taylor Schofield's free kick to nudge it into the net to tie the match at 1. Then, 4 minutes later, Allie Reineman, who had gone 3 for 3 in PKs in the marathon against Clear Spring, shockingly pushed this go-ahead attempt high and wide. It remained deadlocked then until the 65th minute when Warrior freshman Savannah Plumidor split Smithsburg defenders and elevated this shot into the upper right corner to put Boonesboro in front. And 15 minutes later, Boonesboro celebrated that goal as the game winner and the one that unseated Smithsburg as region champion and sent the Warriors to Cumberland to try to claim the region crown Wednesday night against Mountain Ridge, the team that denied Boonesboro a region championship 2 years ago. Speaking of familiarity, the Williamsport boys were faced with the same task they were handed each of the 2 previous seasons when they met Middletown for the 2A West Section 2 title last Thursday. Fresh off Tuesday's victory at Damascus, the 3rd-seeded Wildcats came in brimming with confidence and thoroughly outplayed Middletown in the first half. But in spite of an 8-0 shot advantage, Williamsport was left feeling a little deja vu through the opening 40 minutes in what remained a scoreless deadlock. Then all of those old feelings came rushing back in the 74th minute when Middletown capitalized on one of their few opportunities to forge in front 1-0. It would turn out to be the match's only goal as history three-peated, and not in a good way for the Wildcats, with their season ending despite a valiant effort against the 2-time defending state champs. Schools whose state championship teams hail from very different eras squared off last Friday in Clear Spring as the top-seeded Blazers, whose only state title came in 1976, hosted second-seeded Brunswick, the 1A state champion of just 3 years ago, with the winner advancing to the West Region title match. The Blazers, who last wore the region crown and appeared in a state semifinal in 2006, took another step toward rewriting their postseason history. Carson Poffenberger staked Clear Spring to the early advantage off the Nick Faith corner kick, and then the Blazers simply turned things over to Jarrett Lozich, and all Brunswick could do was watch the show the speedy senior striker put on because the Railroaders were powerless to stop him. In his final home game, Lozich tallied 3 times, his 28th, 29th, and 30th goals of the season to propel Clear Spring into Wednesday's section final in Cumberland against Mountain Ridge on the strength of a 4-1 victory. And with Wednesday's results pending, that's where our deadline forces us to leave off this week. Between Mother Nature ruining Tuesday and the state scheduling every event known to man on top of each other at various sites on Saturday, it's going to be quite a challenge, one like never before, but we'll give you everything we've got next time and catch you up as best we can. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you then on The Inside.
Hey, your sisters and your brothers, your haters and your lovers, you gotta get up and